Hi, everybody. Welcome to Sending Ravens. And again, as promised, and a Taurus always does what they promise, or they really try to. I'm bringing Christine Northrup. And I'm not sure, Christine, did you prefer to be Dr. Northrup?
No, it's actually Christian. It's a French name, Christian Northrup.
Okay.
But you can call me Dr. Northrup or Chris or whatever. Seriously, it doesn't matter.
Well, we'll start all formal and we'll call you Dr. Northrup. And a lot of people I know that are following me follow you as well and likely know who you are and a lot about you. But for those who don't, would you mind giving us a little brief on just who you are?
Yeah, a little brief. I'm by trade, board certified OBGYN. I saw some things that were missing in the women's health field. So I wrote a bunch of books. 3 were New York Times bestsellers: The Wisdom of Menopause, Women's Bodies, Women's Wisdom, and Goddesses Never Age. I was on the Oprah Winfrey Show 10 times. I did 8 highly successful public television specials. In 2013, Reader's Digest named me one of the 100 most trusted people in America. I've since then had a little dip in the mainstream media. I've been on Rachel Ray and Dr. Oz and The View and NBC Nightly News. And Oprah's one of Oprah's Super Soul 100 people using their voice to uplift humanity. And this year, the Watkins Spiritual 100, I made the list again this year, and that's 100 living people who are inspiring people around the world. So that's who I am. I've delivered a lot of babies, done a lot of hysterectomies, a lot of C-sections. Yep. So that's me. But I just saw missing pieces that I thought were needed. Just like with your tarot readings, you're reading the field, you're reading the quantum field. And that's the same with the physical body, is that when we stay positive and we learn that the neurotransmitters of the body work far better in a field of optimism and positivity, that the other stuff is addictive. People get addicted to fear and depression and anger and anxiety. And that's why they go to the fear porn over and over and over again. So it's almost like you got to, just the same way you build muscles in the body by lifting heavier and heavier weights, you need to learn the skill, which you have perfected through your life, of staying positive, and then your life just gets better. But that's not the same as denying what's going on.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
Deniers, absolutely. That's one, like some people even put me in that category, but it's not at all the case. Nope. I'm seeing that, and I'm sure you are too. We're seeing what's wrong, but we're also realizing that we're co-creators in our future by what we'll agree to. What do we agree to? Right?
Yeah. Well, first of all, we agreed to be here at this time. So let's start there. I mean, if you're here, you are one stalwart soul, or you wouldn't have been here at this particular time. Yeah. And don't you imagine, I was once at a Buddhist monastery in Thailand, and the old monk who was 90, he said, the chance to be in a human body is like one hair on an ox compared to all the hairs on an ox. And I remember thinking, oh, it must be, souls are just lined up around the block to come down and be in a human body. So don't waste it.
Yeah. Wow. I love that, because when I was studying, I studied native medicine with a medicine man in the Haida Gwaii. And we went through this whole process. It took weeks and weeks, but long story short, created the opportunity for me to consciously leave my body. And it was on a new moon. We had planned for weeks and weeks, sort of ritually moving up to this and doing it consciously. And when I left, it was like I became the whole Milky Way. Wow. That makes any sense. So when people say there isn't a Milky Way, I'm going to have to disagree, because I was there. And it was like my consciousness was spread across the whole universe, it felt like, and I knew everything. That was the feeling. But I didn't know anything in particular, and I wasn't attached to anything, and I didn't have an emotion about anything. And that's the part that I recognized. And I think the medicine man was trying to teach me that. And I was so excited to squish back into my body. I made a conscious effort to squish back into my, what then kind of looked like almost a hologram. I moved myself consciously back into it. And I rolled on the ground for at least an hour in the pitch black. It was like I had night vision though. And I felt everything and smelt everything and was touching the earth and almost like kissing the ground, because it was so exciting to feel again. And that's maybe what souls relish about being a human, even though it's hard here. We find out we've been enslaved and all these horrible things, but we've still had beautiful experiences here too.
Oh, I love that. Gene Decode tells that story about literally being dead, going out into the universe and realizing there was one thing that he didn't have to come back. But if he did, there was one thing that he could fix that would change eternity. And so he came back and talked about that, squishing himself into his body.
Yeah.
And then when he opened his eyes, because he was already dead, his girlfriend was just like completely freaked out. She said, the eyes were looking into eternity when you first came back into your body. Yeah. Wow. Interesting. Yeah.
Wow. So, do you have an actual a practice anymore, other than all of the work you do out in the world for humanity?
No, I don't, because I realized that I could see maybe 20 people in a day, or I could reach thousands, maybe millions. And that has indeed been the case. And also, if you look at the constriction of practicing medicine with an MD and a license within a state, I have 3 colleagues who are losing their licenses in my state for doing the kind of things that I was doing for 30 years. So it was kind of perfect that in 2015, my license came up for renewal, and I said, I don't think I'm going to renew it. I'm kind of tired of the noose around my neck of the Board of Registration in Medicine. And so I was right about that.
Yeah. And but a lot sooner than that, you must have realized that there was something fishy about maybe the system. Even though you're working in it, right?
No, I knew that from before I went to medical school. Because I had a brother who was born and first of all, I had a sister who was born and wouldn't eat. My mother was on antibiotics the entire pregnancy. We all went to Florida for her to get over this viral pneumonia. My dad was a dentist, holistically oriented. His brother and sister were medical doctors, but she was on streptomycin every single day for that viral pneumonia, which we now know does not treat viral pneumonia.
Wow.
And baby was born, she wouldn't eat. She died in a pool of her vomit. And then my brother was born and he wouldn't eat, and no one knew why. And my parents signed him out of the hospital against medical advice.
Yeah.
And he was tube fed every hour on the hour. And at a year old, he weighed 10 pounds and he was completely normal mentally. But the doctors told my mother that he would be mentally delayed, mentally defective.
Yeah.
And they finally found a doctor who put a fiber optic light down his esophagus and said, take the tube out. It's irritating his esophagus. It's going to rupture. Let's just see what happens. Can you imagine? And he started to eat. And to this day, we have no idea what was wrong. But when I interviewed at Buffalo Medical School, where I did not go, but I interviewed, and that was the doctor who was his attending physician. And he looked at me and he remembered the name. And you could tell that he thought my brother would be dead.
Yeah.
But he wasn't. And it was kind of like, yeah, and no thanks to you. Yeah. And then when I was interviewing in another medical school, my dad ended up in the coronary intensive care unit at Buffalo General with chest pain. And 2 days later, he calls my mother and he says, come and get me. They don't know what's going on. And so she goes in, she picks him up. He's got an infiltrated IV, meaning that the whole arm is swollen from fluid dripping into the interspaces, not in the veins. He had a fever. He walks out. The nurses are angry. He's got the chest leads dangling. And when I came home from interviewing at that point at Yale, he's sitting up in a chair with fluid 2/3 of the way up in his lung fields because he couldn't lie down. He couldn't breathe. And he got well. on his own
Oh
because
my,
he had infectious pericarditis. He did not have a heart attack. So he was misdiagnosed. So you can imagine
yeah.
when I got to medical school, I remember I was ironing and I said to my mother, well, when I go, I'll just try to find out why doctors won't talk to you. Why don't they tell you the truth? And then I saw a baby born when I was in med school and, nearly fell to the floor with, I call it pain-filled joy, joy-filled pain, when you're sort of moved to tears by something so beautiful. And that's why I went into that. So it's like I never expected I would write books or be a doctor or anything.
Wow.
An MD was just a better degree than a PhD back at that time.
So
Yeah.
you spent a lot of time helping women, sounds like.
Oh, yeah.
And around their reproductive, it sounds like.
Yes, I think that the whole thing, Janine, really was just my karmic healing of my relationship with my mother.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean,
for us though.
yeah. I mean, it's helped a lot of women. And again, though, but let's back it up. I really believe that this mother I chose was the one who would make me strong enough to do the work because she was into the outdoors, and our family motto, don't ask for a lighter pack, ask for a stronger back. I mean, she went to Mount Everest Base Camp at the age of 84. That's like 100 miles straight up with no oxygen. Who does that stuff? She did. She did the Appalachian Trail when she was in her 70s with her best buddy, who was an ex-nun in her 80s. I mean, she was kind of a force of nature. And without that training to keep going, I wouldn't have had the stamina to do, a surgical residency and then all the rest of this stuff, especially now, with the attacks and so on. But it's kind of at this point, I've been groomed for it for years because I was president of the American Holistic Medical Association in the 90s with Bernie Siegel. And everything we were talking about, the mind-body connection, vitamin C, vitamin D, everyone thought we were quacks for that. So, so now we get into this particular situation and I could see it coming from a mile away, oh, okay. That's the same old, same old. If it's natural, you can't patent it.
Yeah.
Therefore, you've got to make sure that everything natural sounds like quackery.
Yes. They did a great job of that.
Didn't they? You got to hand it to them. They're very clever. They're not God though. So that's the deal.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
Yeah, right.
Sounds like you did a lot of rubbing shoulders kind of with some dark cult players, if you don't mind me pointing out Oprah. I mean,
oh my God. And then I have a women's supplement for perimenopause called Amata Life, and Amata stands for ageless in Thai. But the guy I worked with, I turns out had, 4 different passports and probably worked for the Mossad. So yeah, rubbing shoulders with some of the deep state dark cult, you can be sure that I did. And I was so innocent about how that all worked. But that's why I finally wrote the book, Dodging Energy Vampires, when I got it. Oh, that's what this is. So there's a bunch of us who are empathic and compassionate and spiritual, and we can't even imagine how dark these people that, as you call it, the deep state dark cult, you can't even imagine how bad it is if you're one of those old soul empaths like we are. So this has been an opportunity for us to see, wow, how bad it is. And it's like, whoa, just missed a bullet on that one. It's funny that you bring that up. That is true, man. All that times, on Oprah, but man, that woman does good lighting on a TV show.
Yeah, right?
Really good.
She had a lot of help though. It's interesting to me. It feels to me like it's really necessary though for old souls to be rubbing shoulders. Like think about Donald Trump, for instance. Like yes. He literally was brought up in a family that if you really look at the backgrounds, likely one of those families that we call the I don't know, I can't say the words here, but that those cult families, let's just say, he was brought up in a family like that. And he was placed there. So when I did a deep dive on it, it looked like he was placed there, but he was actually somebody else's son, like could have even been General Patton's son. Okay. Somebody he brings up a lot at his rallies. And this is what we got. And also it was all arranged by what we call the Alliance. Even you could even say the White Hats way back. They've been around for a long time, and they placed him where he was placed. Like there's all of this manipulation going on in the background. I believe that Oprah was also placed in the family she was in, and she's unfortunately was brought up in one of those families and was likely altered so she can be really good and appear really good, but actually, obviously they can. What did you think of that big fall she had, that public fall right at the beginning of the whole?
Oh my, I'll never forget it. I will never forget it. That was unbelievable to me. Unbelievable. And I think that there have been all these different signs. And that was one of those signs way back. I remember the first time I was on her show with Women's Bodies, Women's Wisdom. I remember thinking, just watching the way she was with the camera, because what people need to know is many times these deep state dark cult people, they're larger than life. They're incredibly charismatic. You often cannot take your eyes off them. And I thought she was just larger than life and astounding. But on the 10th time, my final time was at her ranch in Montecito. And I was on for Goddesses Never Age, that book.
Yeah.
This time, I remember, I'll never forget it. This time, she was a normal sized person, and I had grown so that I was no longer going one down. I was absolutely rising up in my own power. And I don't mean power over, I mean inner empowered, so that I was not at all dazzled anymore at all.
Yeah. That's wonderful. And I think humans in general are learning that. This is like a huge lesson for humans. Take everybody off their pedestals, recognize how magical we are.
Yes.
Like it's so fascinating. Even for me to be sitting on a call with you, it's just fascinating to me. And I don't feel above or below. I just feel like we would probably be great friends if we met in person. And well, I hope we are. I hope that can happen. Because I've, put you a bit on a pedestal, I'll just be honest, but I'm learning we're all bringing this magic to the forefront.
That's exactly right. So that what's happening, so we've all been groomed, haven't we, to put all these celebrities on a pedestal. And one of the things we found in the last 2 years is a lot of those celebrities you don't want to have anything to do with. And so at this point, what I tell people, if someone is really good looking and really charismatic, run the other way.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah. And also there's a shallowness in their eyes.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like you could just see it. Because I'm sure there's a few out there that are really good looking and charismatic that might be good. Yeah.
But they're going to here's the deal though, for me to spend any time or give them any attention, they're going to have to prove it.
Yeah.
Like if you're extra good looking as a guy, for instance. Yeah. I'm not going to give you do not get any points for that, because those people have gotten full service at self-service prices for their whole life.
It's true. Yeah. And that pretty much describes Hollywood and what's been going on. And then, of course, we believe a lot of people are starting to see, psychic people, intuitive people are starting to see that these people are largely not at all who they present, and that includes the sex they present in. So it's like right down to, right from the get-go, they're not who you think they are. And they're parading around making a name for themselves as the world's most beautiful woman, or like I remember, who was that with that big smile? Turns out was a male at birth. Can't remember the actress, but had the most incredible smile.
Oh, she was in Pretty Woman. That
yeah,
one?
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
likely a he. Okay, from birth, and then of course they have these ways that they, to pretty much move them over.
Yep. Yeah.
But it's all part of those cabal families. I guess I said the word, but we can say it once maybe and get away with it. But it's all part of those families, and that's what they do. You know what I mean? They have this ritual of changing. So you got your Brad Pitt, could actually have been a female at birth. You know what I mean? It's like, what? So yeah, we can't trust the Hollywood look. All of that polish is just not trustworthy, and we're all going to find out. Everyone's going to know. And we even think, Cliff High's saying, and I'm going to have to agree with him, I'm thinking even April could disclose Hollywood. And that'll be the start of that, just all the normies finally figuring this stuff out that we know.
Well, Disney, we're starting to see that one. I was listening to Ann Vandersteel and Charlie Ward this morning, and they talked about the tunnels under Disney World where children had disappeared.
Yep.
And so, I mean, imagine. So Governor DeSantis just helps pass a law that says we will not be teaching your children up to the 3rd grade about sex, which is totally appropriate. Totally appropriate. I don't want my grandchildren, and I didn't want my own children being taught that in the school. I can take care of that. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And then the hue and the cry from the Hollywood Disney people. It's like, are you kidding me?
You know what? It seems to me that when a child, here's what I thought as a parent, when a child starts asking about it, that's when they should know. Otherwise, just leave them until they get curious themselves. And that seems to happen around, different for different kids, 10, 11, 12. Yeah. Everybody's different, but definitely not grade 3, you know what I mean? Or 3 years old. Like all of the laws they've been sneaking by around children and things that happen in schools have been all towards making it easier for trafficking little ones. That's literally what they're, and getting away with, having that persuasion towards the tiny ones. And we have to be, again, careful with the words here, but you guys know what I'm talking about, the P word that I can't say. And it's like, it's all about taking care of them, because guess what? That's a huge part of their culture. Right.
Yeah.
Horrible.
So my whole life really has been about to awaken within women their own maternal instinct so that they won't turn their children over to the medical industrial complex. Because we now have 79 mandated juices by the age of 18 and 25 in the first year of life. Yep. And all you have to do is go on the CDC schedule to see that I'm not making that up.
Yeah, unbelievable.
And you've been a mother, so can you imagine taking your child in first year of life for 25 shots?
Unbelievable.
When are you going to wake up to the fact that, isn't this funny? Your body made a pancreas and it made a set of eyes and it made a brain all on its own. You didn't have Big Pharma helping you out with that. Your body just did that. Totally. You and God. And so you really think you need all these things to stay healthy? I don't think so. Exactly. And that's where we're going as humanity. We're going in this direction of herbs and nature and our rights given to us by God, not by governments. So I think we're at the last gasp of the old order here. I really do.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm looking so forward to getting on the other side. I know there's still some hardship to go through, but I think we're really largely there. Yeah. I really do. It's just that the pain's going to happen afterwards. Like a lot of people say, like it's all over, but the crying. So the crying will be people recognizing who don't know yet that they have been giving their power over. The crying is going to be recognizing they've been not listening to certain members of their family, even though those few members that were saying the truth were in fact the only ones that had it right, and they had it all wrong. And that's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to recognize that they fell for that whole and boosters and everything else. And then they even, maybe encouraged others in the family to get it, and all the things going to happen down the road because of that. And I know some of it can be healed. We talked about that on that show we had together. We did a 2-part with Catherine Edwards. Do you want to recap that a tiny bit, or just touch on it? Your opinion?
Well, I'll tell you what I learned from that, which was very helpful to me. And that was about 20% will never get it. So they're in the MK Ultra. They're just going to be there.
Yeah.
And then the other part will be about 50% emotional, where people have to deal with what they fell for and they were tricked, but that they shouldn't get out the flail for too long. You're going to have to deal with how bad this feels, but you don't want to stay there overly long.
Yeah.
And so it's 50% emotional, 50% physical, where people can be healed. And I absolutely know that the human being, as a fully made in the image of God, can heal anything, but you're going to have to get aligned with the God that comes through you as you. And then you can heal anything. But as long as you're kind of addicted to the medical model that will tell you, because right now I was just listening to a doctor this morning talking about the fact that the triple people have lost 70% of their immunity, which means that they essentially have AIDS at this point. So, but again, I knew people back in the 80s who reversed AIDS. And I tried to write about it in one of the editions of Women's Bodies, Women's Wisdom. But my editor at Random House just went out of her mind. She said, no, this cannot happen. Remember, the gay community and HIV and all that was a very big deal in the 80s. And a lot of that was a psyop. A lot of that was, just the, So people need to realize same doll, different dress. But I hold out hope that those who, as you said, and you helped me with that, which is that they're going to have enormous self-forgiveness, self-compassion. Don't get out the flail overly long and beat yourself up. Because what I go around and I talk to groups and I say, look, if you've had this, you've been tricked. You have been tricked. So don't spend too much time on that. Let's move toward healing.
Yep. Oh, yeah. I think that goes for most things, like work on how you're approaching it. And self-love goes so far in good health. I mean, the basis of good health is going to be self-love and acceptance of self, because in the physical bodies we choose, we have limitations. Everybody's got their little area that's hard. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like my whole life's been my ears. I got like overproducing wax, and I got weird things going on with my ear. Everybody has, and like nobody's perfect. I'm really lucky in so many ways, though, being, I've almost never spent any time in a hospital, except when I chose to, for a breast reduction. That was a doctor said I should get that. And it was somebody I really trusted. Turns out that person now in retrospect would have been really red pilled. Now I see the universe kept giving me like the best of, instead of all those corrupt people in the industry, unfortunately, but then there's incredibly gifted people like yourself. And I would always get the gifted. Anybody ever dealt with any nurse even, and there's horror stories about nurses, but some of my best experiences were with nurses.
And by the way, let me just say, I never once had a patient who was unhappy with a breast reduction. Not once. That's always been one of the most, people are so grateful for that. So there's a lot of things that medicine does that people, that's really good. Anything orthopedic is usually really good. The hip replacements and the knee replacements and all that. Yeah.
You're right. And there is a really good place for the modern ways. Obviously, when you break a leg, et cetera, they can set it and get you right back. You can be walking in months really well again. Like there's so many great things, but it's unfortunate that it got hijacked for this scheme of the dark cult. You know what I mean? It literally, they took over at the top levels and hijacked the whole medical system. Is going to look really bad going forward.
Oh, yeah. I hope the whole thing just It just needs to go away as we rebuild real healthcare, and we will. There's a lot of great people working on it right now. Yeah.
You bet. You bet. Now, I would really like to offer a reading or two, depending on how many questions you might have, but maybe keep it to 3 at the most, or 1 or 2, just for time constraint. But let me read you on one of your questions, and it can be about anything you like. By the way, it doesn't have to stick to any topics we talked about. I'm just doing this because I think it would be fun.
It's very fun. Okay. So I want you to do a reading for me on where I will be living geographically. I'm in a very, very blue state, but it's like heaven on earth where I am. But I have a feeling, that there might be another place, or maybe I'll stay here and have another place, but I don't know.
Okay. And would you want a time frame on that, like in the next
year? In the next year. Yeah, let's say the next year.
Yeah. Because we could get it in your life, but that could get confusing if we get
next year. I like that.
Means is they're going into the unconscious knowing,
right?
But it's the ego is represented by the lobster, so your ego is a little bit uneasy about because you don't clearly see the path. That's what it's saying. It's lit by the unconscious knowing, but not by your conscious knowing, so it's a little scary. So you might feel a little apprehensive with that card, but you will rebirth a home in the next year, and it looks like it'll be new because aces are always newness, and it'll likely come as an emotional knowing. Okay, let's keep looking here. Surrender to, I'm afraid you might want to leave where you are. Surrender to, things could get a little bit uncomfortable. Okay, so this card, and you might, when you do surrender, you might leave in a hurry. So that's interesting. You might just all of a sudden pack up. So you have to surrender to being kind of ready. So you might want to start, since you have that intuition that you're likely going to have to leave, you might want to start just getting things ready. So clean out the basement if you have one, or, you know what I mean? Get things ready so it's not all at once, and you just leave everything because it's going to be so quick, you know what I mean? Okay. And I would say in the next 7 months, is the leaving time, but when you do decide, it all happens really fast. So even though you have 7 months, you have 7 months to prepare for all of a sudden leaving. Two aces say you're going to leave, and it'll likely be because they're yeses. It'll likely be because you have a vision. It won't come till right at that last minute, and then you'll have to go fast when you do. It's something you can travel by car though, because this card is traveling, but it's across land often. So that's interesting. So you don't have to fly. I mean, you could fly, but it's somewhere you could travel. So it's not like over the ocean, let's say, because that card says it's within a land mass that you can get to by vehicle. That's what I would say with that, just from reading cards for many years. And there's going to be do you have a lawsuit ongoing that you don't have to tell us about it, but is there anything legal ongoing?
No, I left all that in the past. I had many of those in the past, but we have not had that in a long time, thank God.
Okay, because there's something that was disappointing from the past around a legal situation that might actually somehow define where you end up going. So I don't know what I mean by that, but just put that in the file cabinet back here somewhere. That might make more sense, because something about a legal situation that was disappointing rights itself and somehow has some effect on where you end up.
Well, that makes a lot of sense to me because we have, legal situations in my state that don't exist, like, let's say in Florida. I
Okay,
mean, yeah.
gotcha. Okay, now, so it doesn't want to tell you exactly where you're going yet. You still have to discover that.
Yeah.
And, but when you do go, you'll know, like you'll just bump right into the knowing, and you'll have about a month and a half to get everything organized once you know. So it's going to be an moment of knowing, and you got about 7 months in the meantime to kind of get things organized. Then it presents itself, and then you'll have another maybe month and a bit.
Okay.
So you're moving. Yep.
Yep. I sort of can feel this. Now, I have a library that's gigantic. It is fully, Dewey Decimal System. It's all organized and all the books that have led to my career. And I know that I don't need them, but I need some guidance on what to do with them. It feels so wrong to me to just piecemeal, take them all to Goodwill. It would be great if in the past we could give them to a university, but most universities have been, co-opted, so they're not going to want this,
Yep.
Just some guidance about my library.
Okay, that's an awesome question.
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically it's saying you may want to decide what to do with it sooner than later, because when you do leave, you won't have a lot of time. You don't want to just be left dealing with it then. You're going to have enough to deal with. Okay, so you want to think about, so it's good you're thinking about it now. I feel like there might be someone, a friend, who could help you and comes up with a plan for your library. And
Okay.
it gets put somewhere safely, maybe not brought to your new place. And it gets utilized later in a new schooling system of some kind.
Got it.
So
Got it.
people will get their hands on it, people that want to educate themselves. And I feel like a friend or even someone that almost feels like a sibling or anyway, a close person is going to help you deal with it by keeping it, storing it until it's time to be utilized. And it'll be utilized in a new, sort of the new world coming.
Okay.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah. Some kind of a space where it's not like how the universities are, but people are educating themselves and going forward, taking things into their own hands, like a lot of us are going to be doing on every front, like their own education into their own hands. So they're going to utilize the books at that point. So it needs to be stored somewhere because it doesn't feel like it's a good idea to try to take it to the new place just yet. Yeah. I feel like it ends up in a public space in the new system.
Good. Okay. Then one last question. I had what do you call it? Vedic astrology reading with Joni Petrie. And you probably know Joni's work. And she told me that I am apt to get married again. There isn't anyone on the horizon, but just do some cards on that one. That must be a tarot reader's what you're always asked, Really.
I love it. I love love life questions.
Okay, great.
Yeah, because I'm naturally nosy. And I think, I'm naturally, which actually makes for a very good reader because I actually care about things like that. And I find it fascinating. So as far as I'm concerned, I wouldn't be a good reader if I yawned every time somebody asked me a question about their love life. I love it. Like I got a Scorpio moon. So astrologically, I'm a curious George. And even nosy, you could even say nosy. And I would even say I was a matchmaker in a past life, possibly a Jewish matchmaker, because I had a memory of it. And I'm pretty sure I was a pretty nosy Jewish matchmaker who was all about everybody's matches and wanted everybody all matched up. So, when I see shows about that, I'm like, okay, I must have been one of those.
Oh, yeah. I'm working on a natural dating site, for people who... and called Au Naturel. So we're going to be launching that. So I love this matchmaking thing because I know this is going to be the basis for the new earth and the new humanity is creating bonds of affection with people who have the right values. It won't be like Tinder, swipe left.
Yeah. Just because they look good or whatever, or they look good on paper, because we know that's just fake.
Yep.
Okay, so we've got the Queen of Cups and the Hermit. So you've been singular for quite a while?
Yes, yes. The love of my life left in April of 2020 with Death with Dignity. It was a long story, but he was absolutely fabulous because he was a PhD epidemiologist who supported me in going to the State House and testifying against these childhood mandates. And so imagine that God sent me someone who's a professor of epidemiology who worked all over the world with the World Health Organization. And he says to me, oh, no, everything you're saying holds water, so go do it.
Yeah.
But he had other things going on. And so anyway.
He was very wise.
Yeah.
And very fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very wise and very fair. And it's going to be really hard because you'll try to compare people to him. Right. You'll try to weigh them up. You know what I mean? Because that card, even if you're not doing it consciously, like once you had that sort of connection, it's really like it pits people to, a high standard. And I know all about that. Yeah, I know all about that. So we've got the Justice and the 10, but it is karmically necessary, according to the universe, that you be supported and loved again. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be somebody in your community who has like-minded ideas like yourself. So it feels like it's in the medical community is what I'm getting. Okay. And they're also very well educated, intelligent, and you can have a great conversation with them. And they've had a lot of experiences, it feels like, that may be similar to what you're describing that soulmate to you was. So they might have been on a big, really rubbing shoulders with movers and shakers, but at the same time knew the truth, which is similar to your story, right? Mm-hmm. And but the thing is, they're going to be slightly younger, and you're going to need to not like that could be a little hard, like even 9 years younger or something. And so you're going to have to let that go and don't because your ego might have a bit of issue with that. They don't take issue with that, but you might. So there could be a little bit of a, you know what I mean? Because humans, think, oh, that feels too weird, or I'll be too shy to go to a restaurant with them. People might notice the age difference, whatever it is, right?
Right. No, we do a number with age, and I just think that people need to stop with the age. Yeah. And
they're going to pursue you. So they're a little younger for sure, because we've got that page of, we had that page, but we also have that Knight of Cups. So they're going to be a little younger, but they're exactly right for you, and they're pursuing you. So it's the Nine of Cups. You've wished for someone like this. They just happen to come in a bit of a younger body self, but they're an old soul. So yeah, it's coming. Let's see if we can get a time frame. 6 and within 3 years. But I could be talking months with this card too. Within 3, and you meet them by a body of water, or you've crossed. Because you'll assume, because you're a little older than them, and so you're thinking, oh well, I have to have good boundaries because I don't want to look foolish or whatever, right? I sound like I might be talking from experience here. Because us older babes who are total babes, yeah, we can get approached sometimes. Listen to me. Yeah. Anyway, so you're going to have to, it'll feel a little vulnerable at first, because they are definitely putting a move on you, and you're just going to have to get over it and take down the boundaries and explore it.
I can do that. I learned how to dance tango, so I can do that.
Oh, good. Okay. Right
Great.
on. Well, I think we're wrapping it up here. I think we're out of time, but could you let everybody know? We'll have your links below. So I'll get your links down below before I put the video up. So they'll be below. And well, how are you for, like, how can people get a hold of you? Do you have a big channel they can watch? What are you doing out there so they can see?
I put most everything on Telegram, but I have a website, drnorthrop.com. I've got a newsletter, and that goes out every week or so. So that's my sort of big tried and true community that we've had for a long time. I'm on Facebook. I put snarky memes on Instagram. This is my third channel. I can't go live on Instagram. They're on to me. But I do put things on there, Doctor of Divine Biology. But Telegram is where, and I do little voice memos, but for a couple years at the beginning, I would just do a daily ministry because I would say to people, you don't need to be worried, and this is what you can take. And, so we really had a huge community. We called ourselves the Warriors of the Radical Light back then. And so those groups still are ongoing around the world, which is kind of wonderful because we had a lot of people who are no longer afraid because they were listening way back. And I said, you don't need to be afraid. And this is what's really going on. So
wonderful. So you're literally like just bringing that warrior energy. Sounds like on a lot of platforms. And people can even go back probably and look at some of the things you've put out there if they have to catch up a little bit. Yeah, absolutely. But Telegram is sort of the main one. I have a blog that's really wonderful. A lot of great information on drnorthrop.com, very solid. I have a YouTube channel that's just solid medical information. We don't put anything controversial at all on YouTube, but we put good stuff on the blog at drnorthrop.com, but always really careful so that it's not, because I want to keep, just like you with YouTube, I really appreciate that you have stayed on YouTube because the other channels are just clunky to use. I wish it weren't true. YouTube is the easiest. Yeah. I've tried the BitChute and Rumble, and it's just not, I don't even watch, even when Guy puts them up. That's my fellow that works on the Tarot by Janine in the background. He puts them up there. I don't even go look at them there because it's hard to find and I don't like it. Right. So I agree. Right. Exactly. Yep. It's our backup though, just in case, right? Yes, exactly. Well, I can't wait to meet you. I love Calgary. I watched 14 seasons of Heartland, which, filmed there. I just love everything about it. So we'll have to, when things calm down, we'll have to make a field trip up to Calgary to the rodeo. You bet. You bet we will. I would love to meet you in person. And in the meantime, I'm going to say goodbye. And on behalf of all my viewing audience, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom with us. Thank you. It's been a real pleasure. Thanks. Awesome.